Cardinals Corner from Arizona Sports.
Cardinals Corner from Arizona Sports with Tyler Drake and Lauren Koval.
What's going on, Bird Gang? Tyler Drake and Lauren Koval here for another edition of Cardinals Corner. And yes, rookie minicamp is underway, but that's not the big news coming out of the desert today. No, that instead is Zay Jones heading to the desert. He has agreed to terms. I was able to confirm this. Agreed to terms to join the Cardinals on a one-year deal. And I'll be honest with you, that was a big pickup in my eyes. That was a huge need, another need that has been filled, and it has rounded out the wide receivers room. But I wanted to get your initial thoughts, takes. What do you think about the guy? Give it to me.
I know that the Cardinals were looking at about 3 or 4 different sort of veteran wide receivers to add to this team because it is a relatively young room. They need some experience. They lost Hollywood in the offseason, and they needed somebody not to fill that role, but somebody to sort of bring that presence. I think it's a great pickup because it is a position of need still for the Cardinals. They went out, they got Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4. We all love it. We're all excited about it. We're excited to see what he can do.
Yes.
Outside of him, where do we turn? We go, okay, Trey McBride. He comes to mind. He's a tight end. Okay?
He is?
Yeah, he is. So what other wide receiver are we looking at to sort of be exciting and bring sort of a more dynamic feel to this offense? So I think this is a great pickup for them.
Yeah, a veteran presence. Obviously, they've got, I thought the top half of the wide receivers room was pretty solid. Got Marvin Harrison Jr. as your wide receiver 1. We all know that's going to happen. You've got Michael Wilson coming back for year 2. Could very well be the wide receiver 2. Like I before Zay Jones was in the picture, he was wide receiver 2 in my eyes. Now you've got Greg Dortch as a slot man. Like that side of things, I was pretty comfortable with. But once you get to the back half, there was just so much unknown. I mean, you bring in veteran Chris Moore. That's just not really going to move the needle for what this team needs to accomplish this season. And you need to bring in another guy who, if Michael Wilson has to go, if he goes down, if he has to miss a couple games, who knows? If maybe he hits the sophomore slump a little bit, like you need to have a veteran guy who can come in and who has proven he can do it. I mean, Zay Jones, 7 years in the league. I mean, he's entering year 8, I believe, and he led Buffalo in 2018, receiving yards, touchdowns, catches. That obviously wasn't the greatest Bills team. I think he only had like 540-something, 60-something yards. But he turns that around a couple years later, 2022 with Jacksonville Jaguars. He is second on the team behind, I believe, Christian Kirk, former Cardinal. And he put up like 823 yards, had a handful of touchdowns. Like that is the type of production you need to see out of your wide receiver too. And I think just having that ability to say, hey, this is another option we have. I mean, those 4 guys, you could make a case is a top 10 receiving core in this league now. I really believe that.
And those top 4 guys, how you just sort of laid them out in succession there, it's exciting because Zay Jones comes into this offense and he does 2 things. I think he makes the wide receiver room more comfortable. By that I mean he's letting wide receivers play in the position and the slots that they want to, that they thrive in. And it gives them the option to now do that and play in a position that leaves them feeling more comfortable. He also brings something that we've talked about a lot, a deep ball threat. During his time with the Jags, multiple plays you can see it is just Trevor Lawrence airing it out downfield and going, all right, Zay Jones is down there somewhere. Let's see if he can get it. And that's something that the Cardinals lost when they lost Hollywood. They lost that deep ball threat. And now bringing in Zay Jones, I think you get that back. I think that's more of an option for them on offense.
Definitely. And another thing I think that's a little underrated is his availability.
Yes.
I mean, last year, I think he only played about 7 or 9 games, somewhere around there. But before that, he hadn't missed more than a couple. I mean, he had played in at least 15 games a season, even with, getting traded mid-season from Buffalo to Las Vegas. So that side of things too, just another step or another showing of, this is a guy Monty and co all like, because you've got the availability, you've got the veteran, presence, and you've got the production. So I think he checks all the boxes. Like Jonathan Gannon says, the buckets that they have, I think he fills 3 of those buckets in that regard. But I want to get into the question because as much as I think there's a potential that he is going to be wide receiver 2. Who do you think is going to secure that wide receiver 2? Let's say, who wins the battle out of training camp?
Michael Wilson.
Michael Wilson.
Michael Wilson. And it's
Why?
funny that you ask this on the heels of the availability discussion, because that is the question mark surrounding Michael Wilson is, can he play full season healthy? And can he bring the kind of production value that the Cardinals need from a wide receiver too? I think he can, and I'm pretty excited to see it happen. And fingers crossed that it does happen because he has the length, the build, the dynamic abilities on the field. I mean, when we saw him play last year, I had no complaints about what he was able to actually put out there on the field. And I'm excited to see that sophomore progression for him and see if that can happen. And he gets a full season and a full training camp with his quarterback, which he didn't have his rookie season. He didn't know how good is Kyler. I mean, he talked about it a little bit during the offseason. He's like, I can see Kyler working over there on the side. And he has, I believe he said something like a bullet for an arm.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. And I remember being like, oh, he's excited and he wants to play with him. But he didn't get till about the halfway point of the season before he actually got to play with him. And then he got hurt. And so if we can get a full season of healthy Kyler and healthy Michael Wilson, I think he is securely the number 2 wide receiver on the team, followed by Zay Jones. In my head, he's more of we need to, like a chunk yardage wide receiver.
Okay.
We need something, a more like steady set of hands on third down. Like, okay, it's 3rd down and 10. Who are we going to? Let's give Zay Jones a shot.
Okay.
Sort of how they tried to use Trey McBride at the end of last season is how I now imagine he's splitting with Zay Jones.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the thing with Wilson. It's like, I don't want to knock his production or knock his, abilities, but it's just bad luck.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like, these injuries aren't related. That's the thing that sucks the most about this situation, is just he has shown, he's flashed that he can be that guy. These injuries just pop up. So yeah, big if he can stay on the field, but that's really the only knock on him.
Who's the wide receiver 2 to you?
Zay Jones.
Okay.
It's just, he's at least the leader in the clubhouse, and he's got the resume. He's shown, I mean, the 2 years that he really showed out, he had a lot of targets. He had over 100 targets. And I think, who knows if he gets that here, but I think just getting him more looks and knowing that he's going to be a 2nd, 3rd, maybe 4th option, I think it's going to open up some more for him. So I think a lot of emphasis is going to be on Marvin. A lot of emphasis is going to be on Trey McBride. That's going to leave your slot man and your other outside guy pretty open. And so, I mean, Greg Dortch is another guy I think benefits from this, because it's one more guy they've got to deal with on the outside, and he can go wreck just game plans on the inside as a slot guy.
And that's what I mean about the wide receiver room being more comfortable in the position that they're in. You now have a lot more flexibility than you've had over the past 4 or 5 years with Cardinals wide receivers to really put them in positions to succeed. And I hope that we can see that right from the outstart of the season.
Yep. Same with me. That's going to be the big thing, and I think the other thing that we have to watch too is how do they move these pieces around? Do they move a Zay as a slot guy sometimes? Do they move a Michael Wilson in the slots? I mean, these guys are bigger dudes. I mean, Zay, I believe 6'2", 200, so he gives you another big target. So I'm really interested to see how they exactly fit him in. Obviously, I think he's going to be more of an outside guy, but he did show, I mean, when he led the team in Buffalo, he basically split between slot and outside. So a lot of versatility there, and we know that Gannon and Monty love versatility.
And we've really broken down how this affects the other wide receivers in the room, bringing in Zay Jones. The other end of that is Kyler. How is this going to affect him? It gives him more options. Are we finally going to be able to see a little bit more of what we wanted to see and what we saw from him at Oklahoma, just sort of this more dynamic passer, runner? There were a lot of debates at the end of last season. Does he need to run the ball more? Does he need to run the ball less? Are we worried about his injury? Are we not? Now giving him the ability to throw deep downfield, giving him a true slot receiver, giving him
true number one.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like giving
him true options.
Exactly.
Like that's what it comes down to. It's not he can do this, he can do this, he can do this. Like Hollywood Brown, nothing against Hollywood, but can we really say he's a legitimate number one guy? I don't think I can.
No.
you have a legitimate number one option in Marvin. You've got legitimate wide receiver 2s in Michael Wilson and Zay Jones. You've got a legitimate slot man in Greg Dortch, who I am more comfortable in Greg Dortch in the slot than I was with Rondell Moore.
Yeah.
I just felt like Rondell Moore could turn on the afterburners and give you that big shot, but day in and day out when he got the chance, Greg Dortch was that guy. So that's kind of the side I'm looking at now, is just this. There's definitely legitimate options for Kyler now, and like you said earlier too, Trey McBride, your tight end 1. There's no is he? No, it's yes. These are all guys that are capable of being starters and being top-notch starters at this point.
And there's less excuses now in offense.
A lot less.
If you don't
like
produce.
You've got to show up.
Exactly.
The pressure is on, and all these guys, they love the pressure. We've asked them before. Kyler loves pressure. It's a privilege to have pressure, as Zaven Collins has said. But it really does turn like, all right, we are loading the cupboard with weapons for you. Now you've got to go show us what you can do. And
that kind of sums up the Gannon regime right there.
Oh, yeah.
Is pressure, now produce.
Yep.
Now make it happen.
Don't say it, show me.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And speaking of that, rookie minicamp just started. And you were out there just earlier today. What did you see?
A lot of rookies getting out there and stretching and kind of getting the ins and outs of how to be a pro and how to practice. And I will say this, Darius Robinson is huge.
Okay.
Xavier Thomas, huge. Those are probably the two big things, is just the sheer size of these guys. Like, talking to Darius at the draft, he had a suit on, everything. Like, he was big, but out on the practice field, monster.
He was a little bit more contained.
Yeah. Like, just absolutely. It just obviously there's only, I think, 16 guys were out there. Got Tua's brother was an invite. Got a couple undrafted guys, 12 rookies from the draft class, but it just seemed like a different kind of batch of rookies. It was very interesting.
And how would you compare them to, you were also boots on the ground last year during it. How would you compare sort of how these two groups look?
Yeah, I think last year I was looking more, obviously everybody's looking at MHJ. What's he doing? And obviously it was rookie minicamp. He's not doing a ton. I can tell you right now, he didn't do a ton of special teams work, which let's just get that out of the way now. He's not playing special teams. But, I think just for me, it was more about who I was watching. And last year it was a lot of Michael Wilson. It was a lot of, can he be that guy? Can he be the guy next to Hollywood? Can he be the guy next to Rondell Moore? And B.J. Ojulari, and it was a little weird because he was kind of going through some injury stuff. So, but it was, can he be the next pass rusher? Like, is this the next phase? And I just feel like this is another step in, like, yes, they knew kind of the guys they wanted last year, and now they come back around and are like, all right, we've got these guys, and we're going to submit this batch. Now we know exactly where we want to put these guys. I mean, even like in their conversation with Elijah Jones during the NFL draft combine, when they said, this guy reminds me of Garrett Williams. Like, it's just those kind of things of like, yep, they want to get the same type of mentality, but they now have a better idea of the type of talent they've got to bring in to really fit and gel with the rest of everybody. So that's the side. And I think the other side too is just the excitement that all these guys have, the fun they're having. But when it gets down to it, these guys are all ball. They're all just, they want to watch ball. They want to live and breathe ball. When we were talking to Rabbit today, he was talking about how he'd get on the plane from one of his games and start watching other games, and he'd watch Marvin Harrison on the plane back, and just like, he lives and breathes ball. That's all he wants to do. So it's that part of it. You can clearly see that right away. I mean, Tip coming in and talking to us, like, and that's been, and I gotta say something about Tip, because that was probably the one of the craziest quotes from this week. Is he is a big pottery aficionado. Like, the dude makes pottery left and right. Gave his sister's wedding gifts that he made, dishes, bowls, mugs, all that stuff. So hearing the dude who calls himself a mauler and loves to put people on the ground because that's the gifts that he was given, turn around and say, oh yeah, I love sculpting. I love throwing pots. Like, it was just, that was like it was Deron Wolfley Jr.
Yes. Yes. And I saw there's a video up on the Wolf and Luke Twitter page as well where you can go and see him and Wolf meet for the first time. And it's like, wow, he's interacting with his twin. It's like looking in a mirror.
And man, I didn't know he was that much taller than Wolf either.
Yeah.
He's big.
Yes.
He's big.
And I also thought it was interesting. I know Max Melton earlier in the week had actually talked about the fact that he was like, there's so many Big Ten guys here.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many guys I've played against and I've seen before, and I know how they play, and now we're all on one team, which I don't really think about much as a fan. And then I go, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, he knows him. There's a level of comfort there, even though they were opposition.
Speaking
before.
of Melton, he had the best chain of the rookie class this week.
I saw that.
Had the giant Mad Max. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Big fan of the original movie, he said. So
Okay.
at least he's got the background down.
Yeah. And more with rookie training camp is just how much the Cardinals played their rookies this last year. I expected them to do the same this year, especially with that draft class targeting so many holes that they had. Is there a rookie that you're keeping your eye on specifically?
You know, I obviously MHJ's up there, but I think he's wide receiver 1. Darius, I want to see where he's going to really call home. I think he's going to move around a lot, but where exactly does he call home, or where exactly do they feel like he's going to fit? And then I think I'm turning to the offensive line, and I'm turning to Isaiah Adams. What can he do? Can he really fight for that starting left guard spot? Because initially I was like, yeah, depth piece, but now I don't know. I think there's a good chance that he could very much threaten to at least get some meaningful snaps at the position. Evan Brown's there, and I think he's the front runner still, but Isaiah Adams is a guy to watch. And I think just seeing the cornerbacks, who's gonna be the guy like last year? I mean, there's the 3 last year. Now you've got 3 this year. Who's gonna really take those reins and run with it? I think it's gonna be Melton, but does some of these other later round picks come up and really make that competition whole? I think that's where I'm at.
All right. Anything else that you want to add about rookie training camp?
One more thing. Trey Benson. How does that running back room
fill out?
And the other thing, too, is, I mean, he is really close with Michael Carter already. They knew each other before he got drafted, and so that dynamic is going to be something to watch, because Michael Carter, I thought, was RB2 in entering the offseason, but now that's very much up in the air, I think, because Trey does bring you kind of a James Conner 2.0, a little more athletic too, I believe. So how does that shake out? How does Michael Carter fit into all of this? So I think that side of things is going to really, that's on the top of my brain for sure.
And I'll be excited to hear what you have to say about that next week as it all shapes up. And also, we'll have a podcast on next Thursday.
The schedule.
Who's excited?
Me.
Is
there any, I guess, let's give a little... What's your intriguing matchup? We don't know the schedule yet, and it can obviously change. What's the one intriguing matchup that you have, and you cannot say Bears?
All right, my intriguing matchup. The 49ers.
Why?
Because they've consistently been the best in the division, and now I want to see how they match up against the prior best in the division.
Okay. I think for me, it's going to be the Washington Commanders.
Jaden
Daniels, but peel that curtain a little bit farther back. OC Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, that's
number 1 in my book. So I'm interested to see if it's early, late. Yeah, that's got to be my top pick. I feel like it's almost not reminiscent, but kind of like the JG to Philly kind of situation.
Yes.
So I'm interested to see kind of being on the other side of that now. Like what's going to happen with all of that, and I don't know.
And how do the fans treat him?
I mean,
what does
and
that
you got to
look
think, and you got to think the ASU Cardinals fans, like that's it. A lot of people got that game circled, I'm sure.
Oh, yes, and I will too. And also, fingers crossed for not as late of a bye week. I don't want to see a double-digit bye week.
Yes. It's been like multiple years in a row now.
Multiple.
Don't stop. Give them something early.
Give them a true break. Give me a halfway point in the season.
And hey, I'm not going to complain either.
No.
But with that, guys, we are going to turn it back. So keep it locked on the Arizona Sports app, 98.7 and arizonasports.com for all the latest info with the Cardinals and every other Arizona sports team, local sports leader. You can follow me on all the social medias at TDirect for Sports. You can follow Lauren at Koval_Lauren. Follow the show at AZ Cardinals Corner. And we will be back next week, and we will have a schedule to dive into. So be sure to stick around. We'll see you guys later.